Oh, so we are live. Hey everybody, hey students of Seneca, how you guys doing? Thanks to everyone that's come to join this live stream where we're talking over some tips and tricks for GCSE English language. I know it's half term and probably the last thing you want to do is be coming to a live stream. And I have not lost the gong. Of course I haven't lost the gong, although I like how you can tell I am slightly bad at remembering where things are. The gong is here. The gong is here. Is everyone excited? Yeah. Hey Lily, hey everybody. Thank you very much for joining. Is everyone having a good half term? I hope you're having some nice rest. It's important to get your strength up for the last little hurdle of exams. You're halfway through, you're doing great. So well done for getting so far. And you're so close to the end. And today we've got a fun one. We're going over English language. We're going to go over some tips for the exam. You still got like a week before paper one, so plenty of time. I thought it'd be good to have one where if there's anything that comes up and you're like, oh my God, what do I do? You've got a bit of time to work on it or whatever. So we'll go over some tips and tricks for the exam, and then we'll go over some predicted papers from the Seneca website. Okay, so let's dive in. So what is the exam going to be? Well, the nice thing about English language paper one is that even though you don't know the text that's going to come up, the questions are always organized the same, which is great. I mean, it's a small win. So thank you AQA for that. And yet we will be focusing on the AQA paper, but the tips will be eligible for most exam boards. So sorry if you're not on AQA. And let me know, again, shout out in the comments if you have any questions. So let's start. So how is the paper set out? Well, the first question is always going to ask you to list 4 things, okay? And it's going to be, you're going to get a passage and it will give you a section of text and it will say from lines 1 to 7, like list something that happens, or list something that happens to the character or to the weather or to the surroundings, anything like that. And for this, you want to spend about 5 minutes on this question. And my tips for this would be you don't need to look at the writer's methods, you don't need to look at any language techniques or structures. Keep your answer short and to the point, and do not spend more than 5 minutes on the question. We'll be getting on to how to write stories a little bit later. Remember, there are 2 parts to this paper. The first part of the paper is just going over an unseen text and analyzing it. So that's the first question. You want to spend about 5 minutes on that first question. Okay, question 2, this is how the writer uses language, and it's going to focus on a given section of text. Now what I'll do is I will give you some examples of the kind of questions you can expect, because I think that would be helpful. I will just share my screen with you, and again, keep all those questions coming in. I'll be asking you guys some questions, so make sure you have your A game ready. Okay, so sharing screen commencing. You're welcome. John has disappeared for a second, but he gonna come back. I just need to like launch my cute little camera thing. And you'll see a nice little countdown, and thank you to whoever likes my glasses. I like to. Okay, so like I said, that first question, that is all. You're going to get a long old piece of text. I'm not going to read it now, and it's going to tell you to reread the opening lines, so lines 1 to 5. Make sure you read those. Make sure you read those line references. The examiner reports say that a lot of students go out of those line references and you won't get marks. So make sure when it says lines 1 to 5, just go up, find lines 1 to 5 and just like circle them and put question 1. So you know you're looking in the right place, and it's going to ask you to write 4 things that Millie does. Now I'm going to move slowly here, so if you want to have a go at doing this question later after the stream, you can pause it and have a look and then go and answer it. And then you want to keep these answers really short and sweet, okay? So she went to the kitchen, she put ashes on the stove and she sprinkled water on the acid and she sweats. So there's a mixture of explicit and implicit things. So if we have a look here, she went back into the kitchen, that's one thing that happened. She put some ashes on the stove, that's another. With sweat pouring down her face, she was sweating, that's implied. So that's what you want to do for the first question. Now, question 2. that is all going to be about the language that the author uses, and they're going to be AQA are going to try and help you and give you some tips on things you talk about. And make sure you talk about all of the bullet points, okay? So you want to examine how the author uses language to present these feelings. So it's often going to be about how a character is portrayed, or how, like maybe how the weather is portrayed, or how the language that describes the atmosphere, something like that. And you want to consider the type of sentences used, the phrases and words used, and the language devices used. Now, this kind of question is worth 8 marks. So I would suggest you want to make 4 points and aim for 2 marks per point. And another tip I would say is you want to write a lot about a little. So you want to focus on 4 good points and write about them in depth. So don't just write like 8 single points, try and write 4 good points. Follow the guidance, make sure you're commenting about the language. So what does language mean? It could be stuff like maybe the writer uses an effective simile to convey something foreboding, something like that. Maybe there's a metaphor. You want to be talking about language techniques. I would say you want to start every paragraph with something like the writer. So the writer uses X technique very effectively, and always try and identify the technique. There are marks for naming the technique in English language, okay? And whenever you're referring to the effect it has, so the effect it has on the reader. And you want to spend about 10 minutes on this question. I will go through quickly how to structure your answer. So it's like the classic point, evidence, explanation, link. So the writer describes the physical impact of moving spheres using adverbs such as suddenly and adjectival phrases. So you want to be using adverbs, adjectival phrases. You want to be using those key English language topics. You guys are on it with the timing. Yes, A is productive. You want to be spending 5, 15, 15, 20 minutes. I would say you could even spend 10 minutes on question 2 and 15 on question 3, because question 3 takes a little bit longer. You then want to give you a nice little explanation and say the impact it has on the reader. So always start every paragraph with the writer, explain the effect it has on the reader, and then link it back to the question, okay? That is how you're structuring these answers, and you want to make 4 of these points to get those 8 marks, okay? So what about question 3, I hear you ask? Well, we've done language. Question 3 is all about structure and how, so in question 3, you don't want to be talking about language techniques. And this question 3 is going to refer to the whole text. So you're not going to have to be looking out for those like weird little line reference things. So study A as the whole source, and then again, AQA is going to try and help you out a little bit and give you some tips on the things you should look at. Now, the key things you're going to be looking at are any changes in focus, any changes in the story. Maybe there's a key moment in change, maybe everything's like really happy and like you're like skipping through fields of daisies, and then like bam, it starts raining, and then everything like goes really bad, you know? So there'll be a kind of a key bit of transition. And for question 3, I would aim for about 15 minutes. And you might want to look at the character, the setting, the atmosphere, one of those 3 things is likely to change. And how do they change from the beginning to the middle to the end? And what is the writer trying to achieve by this? So think about the intent. If the weather changes, why has the writer done this? So things I would look out for, there might be a circular narrative. Maybe the story starts and ends in the same place. Maybe there's like the weather changes. So at the start, again, it's like sunny, and then it gets really rainy at the end. A little bit of pathetic fallacy. So that's the kind of thing you're going to want to be talking about. And again, structure this in the same way. Give a point, give some evidence. Make sure you use direct quotes, okay? And then link it back to the question, okay? So that's what question 3 is all about. Yes, so next we move on to question 4. Now question 4 is a bit of a beast. This is a 20 marker. And it's going to be, again, it's going to get you to focus on a part of the extract. And you want to read the quote. And then it's going to say like, to what extent do you agree with what you said? So I would say, So in terms of like how many points you need, I think having 4 points is good. It just makes me feel safe. If you write if you have one really strong detailed paragraph where you make loads of points in that one paragraph, maybe it could work. But I would say always err on the side of caution and try and have 4 points just as a structure. Like English is not as black and white as something like maths. That's just a structure to start with, and it can help you when you're feeling a little bit lost in the exam. So then let's get back to question 4. So there's 20 marks. I would advise spending maybe 20 minutes or 25 minutes on this question. Now you're given an opinion, and my advice would be always to agree with the opinion. If you're like, that would be my default. Most, like 95% of the time, I would agree with whatever opinion I'm given because it can be easier to argue. Question 4 is like the amalgamation of all the previous questions, right? So it's going to be, you want to talk about language, you want to talk about structure, and those would be my tips for 4. And a nice little acronym that can help is try and think about the writer's intention. Feel, imagine, or think. What does the writer want you to feel, imagine, or think? Okay. So those are my tips for the agree question. Okay. So again, you're just using the same skills you did in questions 1 to 3, just all together, and you're going to want to structure this one like an essay. Okay. So an example of a question 4 would be something like, look at the second half of the source, and a student commented, this half of the tale where Millie confronts the boy implies that Millie is aggressive, caring, but also very foolish. How far do you agree? Again, make sure you cover all of these bullet points, right? So just as you cover your personal opinion, just tick that off, assess how well the author presents Millie's reaction to the boy, tick that off, and back up your answers with quotations from the source. Every time you put a quotation, tick that little cute bullet point. Because that's what's going to get you those marks, and we want you to get the mark you deserve and have been working for freaking ages. Okay, so that's the first half of the paper done. So unseen text. First one, you talk about 4 things that happen, maybe to the character, maybe to the settings, maybe to the atmosphere, whatever. Question 2, you're talking about language. Only talk about language techniques. That's stuff like similes. It's stuff about like adjectives, whatever. Then the third one is all about structure. So you want to talk about the narrative, any motifs. Is there any repetition? You don't want to be talking about language devices in 3. Question 4, that is everything. That is where everything comes together, honey. So you're talking about structure, you're talking about language, you're talking about things that happen. How does the author make you feel? What does it make you imagine? What does it make you think? Okay, so that is what you need to be expecting for the first half of the paper. Right, before we move on to how you write a nice little story, does anyone have any questions about what we have covered so far? Okay. Any questions about English language GCSE, let me know. I'll do my best to answer. And then we'll be moving on to how to structure your story. And yeah, exactly. So should we go on to that? Let's do it. So for your question 5, I would suggest 45 to 50 minutes on question 5, and you're going to get a choice of 2 questions, okay? And like the examiner reports always say that every year someone answers both of the questions, or some students answer both questions. You only need to answer one of the questions. Yes, totally. At the end, I will try and give some advice on how to stay motivated during half term, because that can be really hard. I know, I remember from my studying days. So let's quickly go over how you're going to absolutely boss this story, okay? So what do we do? What are we going to do? So pick the one you're going to respond. Pick the one you're going to respond to in the way that you will get 2 options, and one of them will be like a picture. So it could be, so the BBC is running a writing competition and they intend to publish the winning entries, write about a dangerous situation based on the picture that follows. So you'll get a picture, and you will have to you'll have to answer based on the picture, or option 2. Let me just move my little face here. Option 2, start new section. Here, you're going to be it'll just say to invent a story in which one person helps another. Okay. What do you need to do to get a good mark in this part of the paper? Well, I'm glad you asked. I saw someone had some tips on structural comments to focus on. So before I forget, because I'm not the best at multitasking, but when you're writing about structural points, the things I would look at is you want to talk about any key moments of change. That's what you want to be looking at. You want to be looking at any patterns. Does anything come up again and again and again? Is there a particular object that keeps being mentioned? Does the same thing happen twice? Are there any contrasts? That's a really important structural device. Any juxtapositions? Are there two very different things very close together? Is there any repetition throughout the passage? And are there any motifs? So those are the things I would say for structural points, okay? Any other questions I'll get to at the end, but right now we're going to talk about that writing question, okay? So coming up with a story can feel a little bit like terrifying and daunting in the exam, but you're going to be totally fine. I would spend 5 minutes planning, 40 minutes writing, and then 5 minutes checking, just because there are 16 marks for like spelling, grammar, and stuff like that. So you don't want to be missing out on those marks, okay? So there are two key things you're assessed on. One is communication and organization, and the other is vocabulary, sentence structure, spelling, and punctuation. So you want to be using some key writing techniques. So what I used to do when I plan, is my face gone? Oh, I'm sorry, where did my face go? I mean, you probably probably not a bad thing. You're probably a little bit bored of it. Where's Jono? Is he back? No, I'll be back. I'll be back. Hold on, we got this. Okay, I should be share. Okay, we're getting there. It's been a bit of a break from the live stream, so we've just had a little bit of a technical delay. Where is it? Okay, countdown is there. Boom, we're back. Okay, so the key things you want to do is you're going to want to use some literary techniques. So when you're making your plan, I would just have a list of some literary techniques in the margin and tick them off as you incorporate them into your plan. Things like similes, things like a metaphor, things like short sentences. You need to vary your sentence structure. Have some short sentences and have some long sentences. So just have a little tick list in the margin of your plan to make sure that you are hitting all the different things you need to do to get those marks. Vary up your grammar. Maybe include a list somewhere. And you can, every list, like you can introduce it with a colon, and that's a really good way to vary up your grammar. Be like, yeah, I know what a colon is. I got this. So just have a little list of things you need to tick off to make sure you do when you're writing that story. That would be my first tip for your plan. So try and use some colons, try and use some long sentences, some short sentences, try and use some onomatopoeia. That's when you use words like bang, whoosh, kadoosh, or gong. Hey, that was a good transition to the gong. Normally the gong is a bit random. So that is what you want to be doing in this section, okay? Make sure you write down the different literary, oh my God, that's a hard word to say sometimes. Make sure you write down the literary techniques that you want to include. So again, like alliteration, sympathetic fallacy, that's when the weather matches the mood. So if you're writing something quite somber, talk about the rolling grey clouds. And then if something happy happens, then be like, the clouds clear and the sun came out. You know what I mean? That's the kind of stuff that they want. Another tip, try and appeal to the sense of the examiner. So think about what they might see or feel or smell or taste. That can be really good at helping to create an image. And give some, like, I don't know if give some descriptions in threes. We like the use of threes, so try and use 3 adjectives to really pack a punch. And those would be my tips. I'm going to talk about the assessment objectives and what you are marked on, and then we'll go over a top level answer together. So first is communication and organization. So that's when you're going to want to be writing coherently and controlled. So what does that mean? There's going to be some kind of plot. So think about the story has a beginning, middle, and an end. Try and include some kind of structure. Maybe there's a circular structure. So they start and end up in the same place. Maybe it gets progressively worse. Maybe it starts out really calm and then it's really chaotic at the end, something like that. You want to use good structure and grammatical features. So that's when you want to be using stuff like maybe some contrast. You want to be using some colons. You might be using some short sentences, that kind of thing. Now the other, and that's 20 to 24 of your marks, that's like 24 of your marks is from that communication organization. 60 marks is for your vocabulary, sentence structure, and spelling and punctuation. So make sure you vary your sentence structures. I want some long sentences. I want some short sentences. That's what we want to be seeing, okay? We want a range of punctuations. Get those colons in there. Get those semicolons in there. A semicolon can work just like a full stop, so it can separate two independent clauses. We love a semicolon. And use some ambitious vocabulary. Maybe like on the way to the exam, find some like words of the day from somewhere and try and like incorporate them in, okay? So that is those are some tips about how to structure your story. So think about the narrative, beginning, middle, end, and try and incorporate some kind of structural element. Maybe it's a circular narrative, maybe it gets worse, maybe there's some contrast, something like that. And try and just have a list of techniques that you want to use. So next to your plan, just have stuff like simile, alliteration, metaphor, semicolon, colon, just so you know you've got some things that you know you need to include in your story to get some better marks, and then you can just tick them off as you use them to ensure you're getting all of those marks. Now, let us go through a top level answer to one of the questiones. So, the question we're going to go over is the one with the image of the person. I don't want to misgender them, so I don't know if it's the person who is jumping off of the cliff. Let us write about a story based on that. So we are going to go over a top level answer. So this is going to bring together in a nice little cauldron, very Macbeth, the different elements that we want to be including in our story writing part or creative writing part of the exam. So what do we, oh God, I just hit my hand really hard with the gong thing. What's wrong with Jonah today? So, so write about a dangerous situation. So the furious boiling waters swirled, boom. We've already got a nice strong introduction. We've got some good adjectives. We have a short sentence, okay? I've dreamed of this moment, the air, the sea, the adrenaline. So straight off the bat, we're getting in there with some short sentences. So this is what the examiner's going to want to be looking for to get you in that top level, okay? And again, we have quite a short paragraph, but it's a story. You can be creative here. It's not as rigid as something like an essay. So again, all my life I had avoided danger, the claustrophobia of small town life, and the suffocating experience of education had taught me to play it safe. So again, we've got a long sentence. So we see we have a nice little variation in sentence structure. Life, it seemed, was for other people. Again, this is a good thing to include. We have a subordinate clause. So that's when we have two commas that's separating out a bit of the sentence that we can chop out. So again, you want to be including lots of different grammatical devices and lots of different sentence structures. Okay, and then we have the air is so fresh air. There's a comfort in the hypnotic noise of the seaboards. Call it like, again, this is a really good structural point. We have a good contrast. We've got furious boiling waters, but then we've got fresh air, comfort, hypnotic, seabirds. Okay, and again, that's very evoking of emotions. Hypnotic noise of the seabirds. As we said, we're talking about the senses, because that's a really good way to achieve like some nice little like sensory feelings in the reader. We want to invoke emotions, okay? Other things that are good in this passage, we've got a nice little bit of, we've got a nice, what's the word I'm looking for? We've got kind of like a nice metaphor for flight and bird. For seconds, I was a bird. And again, that's a really nice image. Birds are free. Again, it's a metaphor for freedom. We're talking about liberation. So think about any connections like that you can make. And beneath me, the ocean beckoned, a baptism wait, a rebirth. Again, we end with a nice little religious metaphor. Boom. That is what a great little piece. What I'll do is the whole thing is on the screen now. So if you want to pause it to have a read a bit later, over the next week or so before your exam, pause it, take a screenshot, do whatever you got to do. Write about a dangerous situation. This is a really good, well-written, structured piece. So there we go. Does anyone have any questions? I know we're going to talk about, someone asked about how to stay motivated during half term. So we'll go over that really quick. While I talk about that, let me know if you have any more questions. Yeah, you are, Mara. Put that semicolon in that last line. That's what I like to hear. Someone's paying attention. There's also quite a funny song called Semicolon, but maybe watch that. Staying motivated in half time. Agree, it can be really difficult because you already had some exams and you kind of have this weird like lull phase. I would say my tips for trying to stay motivated in half time is to make sure you're keeping yourself like happy, healthy, and well. So make sure you're doing some exercise, make sure you're seeing friends or your family. Keeping in some kind of routine can be really helpful because you go from the regiment of school to suddenly just having lots of free time. So a schedule can be good. Scheduling your revision, and always just start, if you like, sometimes it can feel like the most overwhelming thing, you've got so much to do. Just tell yourself, I just need to do half an hour. That's all I need to do. Don't need to worry about anything else. I just need to do half an hour revision. And once you've done that first half an hour, you see, actually, this is not so bad. If you're feeling anxious, maybe start maybe writing a journal, just to get your feelings out and to see how you're feeling about things. Just writing them out can be really helpful. Talk about them with a friend, talk about them with your parents or your family or your brother or your sister, whoever. That can be really helpful. But for staying motivated, just think it's nearly over, positive mindset. You've been working really hard, and just keep yourself, just keep that motivation there. I know it's going to be over soon, and all of the hard work will be worth it. But in the meantime, keep active. Maybe wake up, go for a run, write out the things you want to achieve today, have a nice to-do list that can just help feel a bit more in control about, okay, I know what I need to do. And there are some really good websites where you can organize revision plans. And those would be my tips for keeping motivated. And make sure you eat well too, eat healthily, get plenty of sleep. All of those good things can help with motivation. And if you're feeling super unmotivated, spend 30 minutes doing something completely unrelated to revision. And then when it comes back, it won't feel so bad. Okay, so that was our run through of a predicted English language paper and went over some tips and tricks for the exam. I hope it was useful. Give me some feedback. Let me know what would be even more useful, what would have been great to cover. And make sure you tune in tomorrow. Tomorrow we're doing a biology question and answer session. And we're doing a maths calculator paper, hypercram, going over some key formulae and key tips for that exam. Any other live streams you want, hit me up. Let me know what you want. We want to do whatever is going to be most useful for you during this exam period. So give us a shout. Oh, Pearl, you're so sweet. Thank you. Best of luck with your studies and enjoy the rest of your half term. Stick around. There's a free smart learning trial on Seneca if you want to go and give it a go. We've got a bunch of live streams coming up this week, so make sure you hit subscribe to keep up to date with those and let us know, send us a message of what you want to see and we'll do our best to facilitate it. Spanish writing, can we bring back gongiendo? Of course, and gongiendo will always be here. Oh God, I'm not being really loud, so that's fine. You can probably still hear it. Okay, history shout out, geography paper. I will see what we can do because I am but one Jono, but I'm trying to get some other people involved in these live streams because they're so much fun. I really enjoy being able to interact with everyone that's using Seneca. It's really good and makes it really helpful when we're designing courses and stuff. So thanks for everyone for coming along. Food prep was like my favorite GCSE. It was so much fun. I would love to do a food trip. Oh, Richard will be back. Richard will be back. He is away at the moment. We will get Richard here. He is the maths guru. But yeah, let us know your requests, and thank you for joining me. Good luck with your studies. Keep motivated, keep active, keep happy, and let us know if there's anything else that would be useful. Jono is out. I will see you tomorrow, guys. Thank you very much for joining, and good luck. Bye.